Call the meeting to order. Start with Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you all for coming. About time that the boundary subcommittee would like to update the board on where they're at this point and maybe a direction to move even more forward. So we'll start. I'll let you start, Andy, and go from there.
Okay. Thank you. Yep. So tonight we're here to provide an update to the board and really to the community as to the progress of the work being done by the subcommittee. As you guys are probably already aware of, we began meeting as a subcommittee around back in on April 23rd. We met for every other week up through the time of our board retreat on July 17th. And since that time, we've met every Thursday and continued to work on developing it. Our focus in this has been to try to develop a model to recommend to the board for grade reconfiguration. Something that I want to commend Robin and Nathan, the hard work, and all of our administration for the hard work. We've dug through a lot of data. We've had a lot of really detailed discussions on a lot of fronts. This is definitely something that this subcommittee has not taken lightly. To accomplish grade reconfiguration and change from our current configuration to a K568 model. It affects every building in our district, short of the high school and possibly Garfield. And so it's definitely something I believe this committee's very much been aware of and very focused on. We looked at a lot of different options. We'll kind of talk in detail as we go through tonight, but we're ready to present a recommendation to the board tonight as to what the model for grade reconfiguration is. Kind of a little outline of what we plan to do tonight. First of all, Robin's going to speak to you about some value adds. So as we talk about a shift of this, we feel like the committee's been able to come up with a lot of things that we can do as a district and offer as a district to our students that we don't currently, and some changes that we can make. And so she's going to first speak a little bit about those value adds. Next, I'm going to walk you guys through really essentially the scope of the changes that would take place, and if we do ever within this recommendation for grade reconfiguration. Nathan is then going to talk to you a little bit about a timeline not only for transitioning from our current model to a K568 district, but also some timelines for some key steps that would take place in the coming months. And then also a recommended timeline for our board to take a vote and take formal action on this recommendation. And Jessica is going to walk through some plan of finance associated with the changes that we're talking about. And then we're going to leave a little bit of time for just kind of for the three of us, board members, to just kind of share our feelings and thoughts as we've gone through this. And then I'd like to make sure that Dr. Dominguez, Josh Guyman, Drew Tone, and Jessica all have an opportunity to kind of chime in on things. And then obviously we want to get just some general discussion and feedback from you all as the rest of the board. After we conclude everything here in the meeting room tonight, we're going to go tour 4 buildings. And we're going to do that in the order of Plymel first, then Jenny Barker, then Georgia Matthews, and then the last building we'll visit tonight is Gertrude Walker. Obviously, we're in a formal board meeting, and so I believe will we be able to adjourn at Gertrude Walker, or will we need to return back here to adjourn?
No, we can adjourn from there.
Okay, so we'll be adjourned. Plan will be to adjourn the meeting at the conclusion of our tour of Gertrude Walker.
And as with people, since we are in a quorum when we're on the bus, we'll set apart from one another so there'll be no business taking place on the bus. So, we can Jennifer Ramos is going, so she'll take notes, and so we continue on with the board meeting all the way until we adjourn.
Okay. So with that, I kind of want to turn it over to you, Robin, and let you discuss the value adds associated with this recommendation.
Okay, thank you. I like analogies, and I always take everything back to what I know, which is running a retail business. So school is way different, you know, our product is people in education, not whatever you're selling at whatever business you have. But, you know, sometimes you're selling services, sometimes you're selling products, and to make a business successful, you'll always have to have both sides of the coin. You have to have, how are we gonna save money and how are we gonna make more money? So for me, all of this reconfiguration and boundary study, I apply it to that, and the cost saving factors to me, those are the, how are we gonna save 50 cents? The efficiencies, how are we gonna save 50 cents? But there's always another side to that. So like, how are we gonna sell $10,000 more? So to me, the value adds, these are our $10,000 more sales type things. And I think it's really important that we don't forget, this isn't just about the money, because if it was just about the money, we wouldn't be willing to put money into Kenneth Henderson to try to expand things. These are trying to make decisions that we feel like the community wants, as far as the 5th and 6th graders going back to elementary and up to Kenneth Henderson. So some of the things that we feel could be value adds, and some of these I think are going to be very valuable to the teachers and the students. These are just a few of the things that we've talked about. They're not set in stone that these are definitely happening, not saying that we aren't going to come up with another 20 or 30 more, but these are some of the things that we talked about. Let's see, where do I want to start? First of all, there would be fewer transitions. Those kids are not going to have that middle transition. So now they're going to be K through 5 in one building, 6 through 8 in one building, and then 9 through 12 in one building. So they have 3 transitions instead of 4. We are, we're trying to right size our building capacities with our student count and be cognizant of the fact that not using a building to its complete efficiency is not best. An example that I gave to someone that I was talking to was, and he was a chiropractor, and I was like, if you had 3 buildings that could take care of 30 patients and you had 3 chiropractors and each building only had 10 clients, you've got 3 chiropractors sitting there not using their building or their time efficiently. If you closed 1 building or even 2 and you move them over, then could you try to get more clients? You know, what could you do? So trying to make that fit between the number of students we have and the number of buildings that we have, because that's not a steady number. So that would allow us to have more efficient use of our staff at each building. We would have more consistent numbers in classrooms, because we would have some schools with smaller classes, some with overflowing classes, or we need to open up a 3rd section, and instead of it being a full section, it's only a partial section. Reduction of staff travel time. So for those teachers that are traveling between buildings, they would have less buildings to go to, or maybe we wouldn't need, maybe we could assign 1 teacher for each building, because they would be fuller buildings. Obviously, there's going to be cost savings because we have fewer buildings and less costs associated with that. For the people that are concerned about the safety issues, there is improved police response time. If we do close those country schools, there is improved police response time. There is more athletic opportunities for the 6th graders. They could do more intramural things and not be involved at the school level. Sixth graders would also have access to more electives because they would be in that junior high setting, middle school setting, not just the ninth grade center. Extra programming at the elementary level. If we're using our staff more efficiently, we may be able to add another classroom, STEM, foreign language, some kind of enrichment class. And these are just some ideas that we've tossed around, but then that would give those elementary kids an additional opportunity that they don't currently have. We would be adding approximately 1,000 seats to our elementary between the two schools that the Bernadine Sits and Charles Stones, and that I believe takes in consideration the seats that would not be open if we close the other 4 schools, correct?
Capacity, just to bring Bernadine Sits and Charles Stones online adds about 1,000 seats.
Right.
To our current capacity.
One of the things that we talked about that we would really like to see enacted is to reduce the class size from K through 5 by 2 students. So the maximum class size would decrease by 2. Which I think the teachers would be greatly in favor of. There would also be increased middle school programming, hopefully as we had more kids there and so those are the ones that we've talked about, and we would like to see, 5, 10, 20 more things that we can do better once we do this reconfiguration. Unless you guys have, that's all I had written down from our last meeting.
What sports can a 6th grader do? Just not non-contact. They can do.
Everything but football and wrestling. So track for us would be track, soccer, basketball, cheerleading, and volleyball
That they could do.
that they can do. And I think in that, one of the things that Robin hit on there is, as we've discussed this and we've assessed building utilization rates as a result of adding Bernadine Sits and Charles Stones, then taking offline the schools we're gonna talk about here in a second. And we've reassessed our numbers and looked at capacity. The numbers that are reflective of what Robin said about within this, our recommendation is for the board to change board policy related to the maximum classroom size for the K-5 schools. We're going to reduce that classroom size by 2 students at each grade level.
Which is what?
It is 23 K2, 25 for 3rd grade, and 27 for 5.
So you would recommend lowering every one of those by 2
students. Yes.
We've got it worked out with the number of classrooms that we have available after the reconfiguration, and then we'll have plenty of room.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Robin about what we've covered in regard to some of the value adds associated with this?
So right now, we would be reducing by 2 each one of these. So K2 would be down to 21.
Yes, sir.
Then 3rd grade, 25.
23. Or
23, I'm
25
sorry.
to 23.
Yeah, 23 and then 25 on 4 to 5.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Robin. So I'm gonna talk now about the scope of the changes. I'm just gonna go kind of through this one by one, and we'll talk as we go. First is we recommend closing or repurposing 4 of our grade schools. First would be Gertrude Walker. Our plan to the board would be to close Gertrude Walker, but keep that as a district building for the intent of repurposing it for other district uses. The second would be to close Jenny Barker and to sell that property. Third is to close Plymel and to sell that property. And the fourth is to close Georgia Matthews and for the kind of immediate future, continue to hold on to that building to either repurpose it into an early education center. If we, as we go down the road, determine that our district is ready and wants and is able to open that if that does not end up being kind of the case. We think George Matthews would be an ideal property to sell that property with the intent of replatting it into residential lots and selling it as residential property for future residential development. We recommend we keep Victor Ornelas as an elementary school. So as we've talked about this, that has been talked about as options of converting that into a pre-K, but in this model, we recommend keeping Victor Ornelas as an elementary school. Our recommendation is to transition Burning, Phipps, and Charles Stones into elementary schools. And the focus being on those three schools lie in the area that boundary-wise, we would be studying the future, where we're really seeing most of the development in the future with our current and future development. So as we get to the point where our administration team starts to develop boundaries, we want to develop boundaries that set the current building utilizations at those three schools down around 70%, kind of on the low end of that target range, intentionally for the ability for those boundaries to remain for the longest period of time possible, and those buildings to be able to continue to take in the future residential growth that we're seeing on the north and east side of town. So again, VO, Burning, Sis, Charles Stones all would be elementary schools with on the about around 70% building utilization ideally when we draw the boundary lines for those. The other portion would be regarding KH. So we would have two middle schools in this recommendation. And we would to make this grid reconfiguration work, we actually have to add on to KH. So right now, we have between 14 and 1,500 students in between 6th, 7th, and 8th grade on average. Our target range, as we've looked through this model, the middle school is really the bottleneck within when you talk about capacities. Horace Good's capacity is about 900 students, thereabouts. We ideally want to set our middle school capacities at about 75%, so that we have the ability to grow and absorb larger classes as they come through. So that puts in 75 to 80%. So that puts us looking at taking of those approximately 14 to 1,500 students that we have, putting approximately 750 of those at Horace Good. That's really what led us to understand, okay, now then what would we have to do to KH to house the other approximately 750 students? We've worked with administration's been worked with GMC and architects to do some programming of that, some space programming of that. This recommendation would entail building on somewhere around 30,000 square feet onto KH, as well as interior renovations to some areas within KH. And that addition would entail classrooms, some of which would be built out of storm shelters. And that would allow us to put the building capacity of KH to where we would house 750 students. So we didn't go into this with the specific intent of trying to create two evenly sized middle schools. Honestly, we were as we kind of polled and talked last meeting, we were fairly okay with the idea of having two unequal sized middle schools or something, either at the ratio we currently see or something thereabouts. But as we worked the numbers backwards and wanted to make sure we developed and looked at a program that allowed us to have a growth in our student population, and we really started by trying to create a student count at Horace Good that is in that range of utilization. And then that kind of left us with the number that we had to work towards and develop a plan for at KH. And it ultimately just settled out to be about, we will have pretty equally sized middle schools as a result of this. Just to give you some backstory on this, we deliberated a lot of options here. As you all probably understand that what we're presenting is very similar to what was some of the options that were presented during the RSP boundary study. But we did not kind of pigeonhole ourselves with that idea. We talked about every building in elementary school in the district and weighed the reasons why, should we consider closing Jenny Wilson? Should we consider closing Buffalo Jones? Should we consider closing, Florence Wilson? Every one of those buildings was discussed. To be honest with you, we spent a decent chunk of time at two separate meetings really evaluating if Abe Hubert should be closed. If it was right to continue with Abe Hubert within our district and how that serves our building and whether or not that building should continue to be an education center for us. But as Robin said, the really significant challenge in this is when we talk about these elementary schools is when you put Bernadine Sitz and Charles Stones as an elementary school, which they currently are not, obviously, you're adding about 1,000 seat capacity at the elementary level. If we make no other changes, we would have 13 elementary schools and our building utilizations would be down in the 50% range, between 50 and 50%. Yeah, and so that's really problematic. And for us to be able to operate efficiently as a district and really set our district up to be successful long-term in the future. Me personally, as I've been thinking about this, this is, the result of doing that. We have to look at closing on some of our other buildings. And so we can talk about kind of some of the reasons why, if you guys want to, as we get a little bit farther along, is why those four buildings really rose to the top. But we also looked really hard about building utilizations. So you're adding, when you think about adding 1,000 students, and then we're not taking offline 1,000 student capacity by removing those. So we'll actually have a net of more elementary school seats now than we currently have. So I believe this plan is also cognizant of future growth in the district and setting us up to see us be able to handle the growth we're going to see in our community in the coming years and in the student population that's projected to come with that. As we talked, after we make the 2 student per grade level reduction in our maximum class sizes, when we rerun the numbers, if you take our total student capacity across the buildings that would be elementary schools as a result of this recommendation, we will be operating at about 65% capacity. To give kind of a perspective of making these changes, what we will have in regard to like 65% of if every class at every school was at the board limit capacity. So this plan definitely allows for future growth. Nathan, do you want to talk a little bit about timelines, both timelines for the timeframe set for the timelines for the K6 to into K5 transition and other things?
So with the addition of the middle school students, try to balance that out. Andy referenced the addition onto KH. And that is going to take a few years to process, to draw it up, get it all taken care of and in place. So what we are looking at a 3-year time window of being K6 in the elementary buildings. And we can do that. And then at the end of 3 years, transitioning then to K5, 6, 8, and have it all ready to go. So we're not rushing into anything. Everything will be done in a timely fashion, making sure that we have dotted our I's and crossed our T's. And I want to add to this before I get into the rest of the timeline. This group, we've had presentations from KDOT. We've had presentations from, I think, everybody in town. So we made sure we had enough good information to bring to you guys to make a decision upon this. So As we look at the closing of schools, the elementary schools that Andy referenced would shut down operations at the end of this year. And so this would be the final year for those buildings. Allow us to make some changes with going forward with that then. Here in the fall, early fall, as quickly as we can, you see on the agenda there, we'll have it on as a discussion item under new business on September 9th. And then a vote on the 23rd, and that is to 26, I'm sorry, I read their date wrong. That gives the administration time to begin the process of transition. We've got to move forward. We can't put this off any longer. It's really, it hinders us as a district to continue to operate like we are. And so we are looking to have this decision made at that meeting there in September. And then from there, getting the boundaries drawn is the first thing. We've already done some preliminary work on that based on even some data from KDOT and other things as well. I've done that myself in there with a dry erase on a board, working out what that might look like to help balance out and what the lines would look like. So getting that done here by early fall, and then giving the administration, they are confident they can have a lot of things worked out. We talked through a lot of the questions we've received from the community, questions we received from you guys over the last 6 months or more. All that we would have to go through, the changes that would need to be made with transportation, technology. What else did we talk about? I mean, just everything that we've talked, there's so many things we've talked about with class organization, getting teachers in place, and all of that. As we talked through with the administration, we said, this is what we're looking to do. Is this a timeline that's feasible? And they were confident that if we made a decision here by the end of September, then they can begin all the processes moving forward to be able to get that and have a successful time. There will be a lot of shifting and moving around next summer that will take place with teachers and staff as well, and with schools. And so we talked about what that might look like, having some outside contractors come in to help us move some of those teachers around, and some things happen with that. And what's been done in other places that people have talked about, we've talked about what that looks like as well. And so I believe we talked about, well, each one of the different areas. We'll, of course, obviously then work on the KH expansion, getting that drawn up and getting that in place so that we can move forward with that and move things along with that. As far as those things. So I think we had talked about staffing, getting some staffing set for probably early January, right? So that we have, if we make this decision to move forward like this, closing these buildings down, having some things and safeguards in place for teachers to be able to choose where they would like to go. And then from there, have everything kind of set by January so we can have open for the transfer time if people want to do that. And so that's a timeline for staffing to make sure that they can have plenty of time to plan, as well as go forward from there as well. We do plan on and do strongly encourage a year of celebrations if we go forward with these buildings. So that would kind of go on all throughout this year as we celebrate these buildings and the legacy that they have moving forward as well. And then basically the next 2 years would then be in that K-6 transition plan after that. And then at the end of the third year, be able to go into, which would be 2028, we will, the fall of 28, we would be ready to go then as a complete, the whole process will be complete. Everything will be taken care of. Everything will be, the middle schools will be opened up, and we'll be able to go from there. So I think that hit everything we talked about, right?
Yeah, so fall 2028 will be the first year of K-5, 6, 8 within the district.
Yeah.
So it'll be fall of 2025, 26 school year, 26, 27, 27, 28 school year, be a K-6 district. And then in the fall of 2028, we would be settled into the K-5, 6, 8. The other thing we've talked about associated with this is boundary lines and kind of stability within this transition plan. We talked about the capacity of the buildings that are going to be our elementary schools and the ability to be K-6 centers. And every building has the ability to do that. And so the important is we would draw boundary lines that would not change when we go to from K6 to K5. So when that transition occurs, a student that was a fifth grader that last year that we were a K6 district would just go to the middle school the following year. And there wouldn't be any movement of students living in this neighborhood or after that happens, have to go to a different school again. So really wanted to focus on these new boundaries, focusing on setting these new boundaries that would go into effect this fall, remain the elementary school boundaries after we're K5, 6, 8 district.
Come back next one.
That's, yes, next fall.
Next fall, yeah.
Yes, this upcoming, yes,
Yes.
not right now.
Yeah.
So we already started the school year.
Yeah.
So, yes. Any questions on that? On the timelines? As we talk about this, a lot of discussion we've had is there's a board responsibility and then there's work that our administration team is really responsible for doing. And there's this transition and this handoff. So, us making a decision, as Nathan said, by the end of September, our administrator, Dr. Dominguez, Drew, Jessica, and Josh assured us that there is ample time within that timeframe for this to be implemented successfully next year. If we make this decision in September, we're giving them enough time to do that. There's a lot of things that they'll be coming back to the board to approve, right? When they'll be working to develop the new boundary lines, and then that's going to be approved by the board. So we as a board will be approving proposed boundary lines that will be brought to us by our administrative team. After boundary lines are drawn and the sections are set and they make staffing reassignments, we approve those. Those are certified, classified. We approve those on every single agenda. So we'll be approving staffing changes that are associated with that. So there will be more board votes that will go along as we start cresting some of these milestone decisions that will happen after we make a decision on this plan of grade reconfiguration. So, Jessica, would you talk now about the plan of finance for this?
Yeah, so I just put together some figures of the building maintenance per the long range facilities plan that's already been approved, and everything that with these 4 buildings mentioned that is on that 20-year plan equates to about $12.3 million. Annual utilities for those 4 buildings are roughly $131.7. And one other figure that I was asked to compute is within the 3-year timeframe that construction would be going on at KH, like what's the savings immediately during that 3-year period. The capital projects are over 3.5 million, and 3 years worth of utilities are almost 400,000 for a total of just under $4 million. That within that 3-year time period could be applied to the construction that's already essentially budgeted, but could be applied to the construction at KH. GMCN has given us 2 different options. One's around the $14 million mark, one's around the $16 million mark. So whichever way the board chose to go there, it's a little different, but I feel comfortable that 8 million off the top could comfortably come out of our capital outlay reserves, and then look at a lease purchase for the remainder. So worst case scenario, we're probably looking at a maximum of 8 million lease purchase. The rates right now are 4 to 4.5%. If we did a 10-year, it's about $1 million payment. And just the only other lease purchase we have right now is our ESCO project, and it was a 20-year, but our payment, it will increase. It like right now it's around 700,000. It'll go to 1.1 million. So just kind of an idea, but like we'll be paying on the ESCO project for 19 more years. And then the other thing that we visited about with the 10-year lease purchase, if we had to go that direction, is by that time, we're probably looking at needing maybe a bond or something like that for like Forest Good or other buildings in the district that are at that time aren't feasible. So those are the numbers that I put together. Was there anything else you wanted me to touch on?
No, I mean, just to kind of highlight the point you made is that, the reason why we're recommending closing or repurposing those 4 schools at the start of next year is their current planned capital outlay improvements that are in that time window amounts to, I believe you said 3.5 million, is that
The
right?
capital projects and
Yeah,
with utilities just under 4 million for the 3 years.
So over 4 years. So that really is one of the major components of allowing us to build up and have that $8 million out of capital outlay to put towards the improvements at KH. And then with the balance of it coming from a lease purchase agreement. If we were to do any of, keep those buildings within our district longer and do some of those capital outlay projects that are currently slated to happen there, then those dollars would not become available for this plan of finance.
When is the high school paid off?
That's a 2035.
35,
Yeah.
yes. Do you have any other comments, Robin? Do you have anything else you want to say on the finance? We just wanted to allow a little bit of time for the 3 committee members to just share. Obviously, everybody's worked really, really hard on this, which is, necessary, right? This is a significant change. And so, Robin, do you just want to share any of your thoughts?
I'll start. First of all, I want to express my gratitude to Andy and Nathan and the admin. I have been very slow to warm up to a lot of this, and they have been very patient and very kind with my hesitancy, never making me feel bad or silly for worrying about the things that I'm worrying about. So in full transparency, last week, Andy said, is everybody okay with taking this recommendation to the board? And everyone said yes, except for me. And I said, I'm not there yet, but I don't know that it's fair to anyone else to prolong this until I am there so that we can come with a completely unified front. There are things about it that make really good sense that I'm super excited about. I have I have 3 pages here of concerns that I sent to admin on things that I really feel like I need to feel more comfortable about before I can jump both feet in and say, yes, this is what we need to do. Part of that is why we are touring the buildings tonight, because I didn't feel like it was fair for us to make a decision on buildings that we may or may not have ever been in. Or maybe it's been a little while since we've been in them. And I said, I don't want to look someone in the face and say, oh, when they're like, oh, remember this really cool thing in the building? I don't want to have to say, oh, I've never been in that building, but I voted to close it. So that's partially why we're doing that tonight. I also would like to maybe talk a little bit with some principals and maybe teachers that are going to be to see if they have any different ideas before we, go forward and vote. And they're going to be our boots on the ground. They're going to be enforcing whatever we vote on. And I want to get a feel from them, like what they think the best way to move forward with that is. And I haven't done that yet because I thought if anybody else on the board would like to have that type of interaction, no need in wasting those people's time. If there's 3 or less of us, we could do it all at one time so that we can, anybody else that needs to gather that information can get it. So, that's kind of where I am. We have cussed and discussed, and as Andy said, we have turned every book over. I have asked numerous people because I'm not in love with this plan. I told Andy last week, I struggle with the country schools. I grew up here. That's a part of our history. And so it is really hard to feel like we're shutting the door on all of that history now because we won't have any more country schools. And for me, that's hard. I've lived here since 1970. So I've asked other people, give us some other ideas, give us something different. If we have a different option, to present, then we have options. And there really hasn't been any other great things other than to continue to run at a lower a lower occupancy rate. So that's kind of where I am. It has been a very long, trying process, and I feel for you guys, because like I've been to all these meetings and I'm still not quite sure where I am. And I said to the other two, I was like, man, I don't envy those guys, because they're gonna jump in and have to make a decision and not been privy to the 20, 30, 50 hours of conversation that we've had. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
When we started this boundary study back in the spring, I couldn't help but even at that first meeting thinking about what it is to streamline the schools, what's best for our complete educational process that we're doing here. That is our job, is to help what is best for every student in this entire school system. And we are tasked with, and we've said it before, the 30,000-foot view of what that looks like. And so we have, like they both have said, we have spent hours, we've talked about things. What about this? What about that? And all these ideas have come up, and we've had this brainstorming sessions. And that's how I function best personally, because I'm able to think about things, then it maybe leads me to another area and maybe a rabbit trail. So we've looked at different things. We've talked about things and come to us. And you know, when we started this, there was a lot of unknowns, and there will still be some unknowns as we go through this process. It will be anytime there's change, you know, the only people that like change are babies. Okay, I'm just telling you. But you know, change is hard, and it's something for everybody. But there will be things that we work through. We have talked to several in the community, all the different things, and just heard from them and what's happening. And so there's both ways, and we're tasked with making a very hard decision to move forward. We have to do something to go forward, or we're going to end up in a very worse place. Then we'll have to make even harder decisions going forward. That's where we're going to be at. So I've talked to staff, I've talked to community members, I've talked to people, and it's just unfortunate that we are here, but the numbers are what the numbers are. People are people, and we respect each and every one of the people that are in this community, and we love them. But unfortunately, to go forward, we have to do something, and that's with anything, in any circumstance, any situation. So anyway, so those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate everything you've had to say. Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on this, it's been equally tough for me too. And just in the fact, you know, we've all been elected by the community to ensure the success of our district. That's one of our primary roles in being elected to be on the school board. And that means that we have to make decisions. And sometimes they're really tough decisions. I don't take for granted at all the impact this has on students, families. But I also think that we're looking at doing something that I've heard for the almost 12 years that I've lived here, that people in this community have wanted. They've wanted to see us not have an intermediate center model for our school district and to eliminate that transition. I've spoken to past board members that have served in different times over the last couple of decades, and they had good positive words of encouragement for me, saying, you know, this is the intermediate centers were not necessarily ever intended to be, you know, the preferred way to do it. It was done in the 90s as a way to address overcrowdedness at the middle schools, and ever since it's come, we've wanted to see it changed. And our community's spoken to our school board twice in the last, since there was a committee in 2018 and 2019 dedicated to this, and they made a formal recommendation to the board that this district transition to K-568. We started out this last year on just evaluating boundaries. you know, we have overcrowded, we have forced transfers at Jenny Barker and VO, and we originally embarked on just hiring RSP to assist us in redrawing boundaries. As you guys all recall, at the very first board meeting, this topic of reconfiguration came up, and the second meeting was focused on just that. And it was a unanimous 31-0 vote. We went through the whole process. We really dove into some of the things that we have since been elaborating on. What does that really mean to make this change? What's the effect of it? I had a committee member tell me that if she voted yes on that second night, and if she thought that knew or really kind of had not dawned on her that this might result in her kid's school being one of the schools that the kids closed, said, I don't think I'd vote the same way now that I did that second night, knowing all of this now. So we brought that back up, and that was the focus of our last night of that boundary study committee, and not everybody voted the same way. It was about approximately 85% vote in favor of recommending to the board. So you all, and I know we've talked about all this, and I'm really kind of restating a lot of things here, but what we've been tasked with is assessing a recommendation to you all. If we want to do grade reconfiguration as a district, this is how we believe we should do it. I've tried to look at this and ensure that we're looking at what's right for all 7,000 plus students that we have. We set our district up for all the students that we're going to serve in the future. My kids went to Jenny Barker. It was a really great experience. Mr. Horney, I appreciate you being here tonight. I'm sorry to call you out on it, but I really do appreciate your presence tonight. And it's community. I remember when Mr. Horney was my daughter's third grade math teacher. Is that correct? Yep. And then I watched him become the principal, and I watched him continue to serve Jenny Barker in a really, really great way. These are changes that are going to come around, and so I don't take any of that for granted. I've been to board faculty meetings at all 4 of these elementary schools that we're talking about since I've been on the board. I have seen firsthand how passionate every one of those staff members are about what they do every single day. I see the families that support these schools. And although I know we're talking about making changes and eliminating or closing buildings, I believe that those passions that those teachers have they're gonna continue. They're gonna continue to be passionate and care about our students in any building that they serve. And I think that I fully believe that those parents that are so supportive and not only support their kids when they're in grade school, we see that support when those kids go to middle school, we see that support when those kids get to high school. I'm a believer that those parents are still gonna feel the same way, regardless of what school their students attend. And so, although I understand that we have really wonderful, and I know, and I've seen firsthand, we have really wonderful environments and communities within those schools. I believe that as we make these changes, those communities and that positive culture will exist in every building we have moving forward. I'm confident in that. So I'd like to give Dr. Dominguez, Drew Tone, Jessica, and Josh an opportunity to just give some of your thoughts. You guys have been in every one of these meetings. We've asked a lot of you. We've given you lots of things to go research and bring back and assess. And you're the professionals in the education world, and we very much value your professional opinions. And I just want to give you guys a chance to kind of have an open, share your thoughts before we.
Absolutely. Well, and thank you, board, number one, for being here. Thank you, subcommittee members, committee members that were part of that. So the admin team was actually not part of the committee. We were just there to provide data, information, give some linear scope of the finances, the staff, the capacities, and that information. So I do appreciate everybody's time, energy, and effort with that, because it is been a Herculean feat to get to here. I think you guys have said it well, and being at every meeting from start to finish. It really does get down to a vote. What does the board want to do? And with that, then it would be basically a handoff to the administration to try to get this accomplished. So, I mean, you guys have articulated how you feel, how we've gotten to this point. Big if something's going to happen by the end of September, would probably be the better time frame for admin to make it happen. And if that's not the case, that's fine. We as admin just need to know what the board wants to do. And that's where we're at. I don't know. Josh, Drew, Jessica, y'all can add to it or subtract, but I mean, we've been in every meeting, gone down many rabbit holes, and then the same thing, we'll go down any trail you ask to go down. We just need to know what the plan is. That's it. We just gotta know what the plan is, and then we can move forward from there. So we vetted them all out.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say thank you guys for, I mean, it's been a long drawn out process and thanks for considering it. I think we all know that we need to make a decision one way or another moving forward. We've got lots to do in the next few months. So either way, we'll make the best of everything and get moving forward and take the district in the right direction.
Yeah, Drew pretty much said exactly what I was gonna say. I think, we want to do what's right for the community, and we're gonna support whatever decision you all as a board make. And so whatever you do, we'll make it happen and make sure that we steer the ship the right direction.
Same for me, and I just reiterate like how many things were talked about and no idea was a bad idea and how many ideas were vetted out. And it was just really impressive to see like the thought process and the thoroughness. So, and again, full support, however you guys decide.
Yeah, nice try. So do you guys support what's been presented, or do you think it's a bad idea? I don't know what you think. This is your district, it's your employment, this is where you live, where you work. Do you think it's good moving forward, or do you think it's the wrong way to go?
I've been in the district this is my 28th year. And I think I heard multiple years that we need to get away from the intermediate centers. From families, from, community members, that we want to go K5, K6. They wanted to reduce that transition. So I think that getting away from that transition will be a good thing for the district. And I think that data would support that.
Right. Well, and then once again, the part of the data, 1.5 million square feet of roof means you have that much wall and carpet and so forth that you have to maintain. So on the operations side, on the academic side, on the instructional side, there's 10,000 data points there. God alluded to it. That has been something that was talked about in 19, probably talked about before. And then the hard line is we are down 700 students from 2015. So that's just math. So that's not the emotional side. That's just where you're at this juncture now. In 10 years, are we going to bounce back up 700? With the intermediates going to elementary, as they alluded to, you've allowed for that margin of growth. So
I would say that Kenneth Henderson for some time has been, it's just been a problem having Kenneth Henderson the size that Kenneth Henderson is compared to Horsecote Middle School. And so a plan to eventually address that. And I think that this plan gives you the ability to address the inequity at Kenneth Henderson and get rid of 5th and 6th grade centers and move to 6th grade centers at the same time. And like Josh said, I think that's outside of everything else. I think the community is very supportive of moving away from the 5th, 6th grade model.
Financially, it's easy. I mean, you can look at the numbers and in that aspect alone, it's a good idea. But like Robin alluded it, I know for you guys, it's not just financials. So it's pretty clear cut that obviously less buildings, you're gonna have less capital projects, but not the only thing that you all have to consider, so.
I think one other thought that has been brought up a couple times is the concern about the timing of this. Obviously, we're in the process of search for a new superintendent. You know, Dr. Dominguez is given his letter of resignation. He's not going to be with the district after his contract expires. I honestly think this is good. This is a good timing to be doing this, in the fact that I have, you know, the three of us, me personally have been working, I can attest to, we've been working very closely with all of our administration team and Dr. Dominguez, and I am extremely thankful and impressed by the level of dedication that he continues to show every single day. And I really believe that my impression is that you're looking at this transition to be as part of your legacy with this district. And I have full confidence that he's going to see our administration team through to be successful. So when we think about is how would this look to an incoming superintendent, somebody looking to apply for the job? You know, this timeframe is set so that really all of these decisions are made and everything is in place for the start of next year. We would be starting a new school superintendent in July of next year. And at that point, that person is not having to make these changes. I think if we decided not to do this year, it wouldn't be fair to put this on the shoulders of an incoming superintendent in their first year with the district. They need to be able to get their feet on the ground. They need to be able to get to know our district, get to know our staff, and before they're really asked to be involved in something of this magnitude. If we're as a district comfortable with making this grade reconfiguration change, I think now is the best time to do it. And I do know, and I think that I suspect that prospective superintendent candidates would see this and see that it will be implemented when they start their tenure here. So, you know, and as I've kind of reflected, the other thought I just was having is, I don't want this to seem like a sad, somber thing. I mean, we are definitely taking into the gravity of what we're talking about, particularly the closing of the 4 schools. But this is something that is moving our district forward, I believe. And it's doing grade reconfiguration and making these adjustments is actually a really great thing. You know, we're right sizing our district to be successful in the future, in my mind. So it's not something we have to do. We don't have to do this. We can all decide against it. It can be voted down. But if we do decide to do it, I think it's something that should be celebrated on the whole. I mean, we always have to give gravity to the changes, but we're really making if we do this, if this is what we decide as a board, then we are making this for the reasons of positive change for our district in the future. So just I feel I don't want there's positives and there's negatives, and Robin, you've done a really wonderful job of kind of sharing that as we talk through this.
I'll piggyback on that. I mean, I'm hesitant. I'm not in love with this plan, but I can tell you that throughout at every single one of our meetings, we talked about things that gave you hope and excitement and encouragement, that pieces of this are going to be phenomenal. And I'm struggling, you know, personally, I'm struggling because of just how I function as a human with making these decisions. But I know there's going to be some things that are 100 times better than they were. And not that they're broken now, but they're just going to be better. And when we started talking about the things that could happen for those 6th through 8th graders, when we have a little bit more equity, and what's going to happen to some of these 6th graders that have a chance to start participating in some of these sports, because realistically, not all kids can do intramurals because there's a charge associated with that, and not all kids are doing that. You know, there's some really exciting things. So know that my hesitation is not complete. There are some really, really good things that we talked about, and I wish there was some way we could capture like the essence of what we did over these months. I've learned a lot about myself and about everyone else that was in that meeting room with us. It was a great experience. I don't regret it at all.
How would the band and that be affected now? Because I know they travel out there.
We'll talk about it. So, yeah, one of the things with the fifth, sixth grade issues that we deal with is the travel of the band. Because of that, we had to consolidate into the intermediate schools. Just because of the travel distance out to Barker and Plymouth and then all around. And so doing this, in moving to a K5, 6, 8 model, you've got all the band available, you got all the orchestra available, you have all the choir available, you have all the theater available, you have all the art available. Any of those specials that we currently offer at the middle school level, now we can offer it to sixth graders as well. Right now, we're not able to do that because of all the multiple campuses that have fifth and sixth.
That was one of the value adds that Robin discussed, but that'd be a value add for sure.
One thing, Drew, I want to make sure we reiterate is with the original plan, we're not firing anybody. Everybody's staying on. We have positions for everybody. You want to speak a little bit more about that? I mean, does everybody have a place?
Yeah, everybody's gonna have a place, everybody's gonna have a spot, a place to fill and a spot to go to. And that kind of goes back to those things that you talked about with the value adds of being able to offer more things at those elementary levels, more things at the middle school levels. Because of this, we'll be able to use staff a little bit more creatively than we currently can because they're spread out so thin because of all the elementary schools.
Just a couple of comments and some questions here. I want to thank Andy, Robin, Nathan, administration, and I don't know if anyone in the room participated, but whoever participated and all the folks who participated in doing this, because I believe y'all looked at a lot of information, had a lot of discussion, and I know you had quite a few meetings. So that I just convey my appreciation for that. And you kind of answered a little bit of that, Drew. One question I had, what would with the closure of these 4 schools, if we were to do that, what effect would it have on the number of teachers as far as what that we have now versus then positions?
No position, we would keep every position. Yeah, we would just reuse the position.
We'd have a place for everybody to go
Yes.
to. We're gonna get details on this and I don't take the best notes, okay? And you guys presented a lot of information, so we're gonna get this in detail in writing. I started saying I assume, but I'm not gonna assume anything. Right, correct?
Well, to your point, Mark, if we have 7,100 students now and we have 7,100 students in 6 months, you still have to have that many teachers. Yeah.
Right.
Everybody would have same number of students, let's say, same number of teachers.
When will KH, looking at this plan, when would KH be ready?
3 years,
Fall of 2028.
Okay, 2028, okay.
3 years.
Okay.
And some of the additions would be, some of the reconfiguration stuff we're talking about would make it even better earlier than that.
Right.
So
And the 4 schools in the closure, you said, and I did not get it. What's sell, repurpose?
Yeah,
What
so
were-
the recommended plan is to close Gertrude Walker, but keep it as a district building to be repurposed for other district uses. To close Plymel and Jenny Barker and sell off those properties. And to close Georgia Matthews, keeping the building in the short term. When I say that, I mean next year or 2 as we assess the readiness and the need, if we have a need. Because we do feel like if we were gonna make another early education center in the district to add it to what we already have at Garfield, Georgia Matthews would be a good candidate for that. But if it's not the right time to do that as a district, I think that we talked about selling that property and either we talked, well, just begun enough conversation with legal counsel to understand the legalities of it. We could either demo that, incur the expense to demo that building ourselves, replat it into residential lots and then sell it, or sell it to, say, a developer under the conditions that it has to be, that has to be done. That'd be one of the conditions of the sale, but we feel like that would be a great location in town for additional housing. So that would be the intended purpose of that, if that property were to be sold.
So I know that's kind of your forte, the early childhood. I guess try to help me understand, what do we need to know that we don't know now that we would need that in the future? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'm only doing this off of what I seen happen with kindergarten, and so I'm making a lot of assumptions, so I can't give you a clear answer, to be truthful, Randy, but you know, when I first started teaching, kindergarten was a half-day program, and we started moving to full-day programs in kindergarten, and that started happening across the state, but the state was only reimbursing us for half-day programs, and it took a few years before the state actually started paying full day for kindergarten. We're seeing a lot of pre-K programs around the state. A lot of districts are moving to full day programs around the state. And so if that funding system changes to where we would go full day, then that would be when that would happen. Does that happen next year? Does that happen in 10 years? Does that ever happen at all? I don't know, but I do know what I saw happen with kindergarten, and that's kind of the way that happened with kindergarten. The other thing I would say is Garfield's done. I mean, there's no more room for growth at Garfield. They have kicked everybody out that they could kick out, as far as, like, we've had other programs there that have used, you know, classrooms that weren't being utilized, and there's more classrooms for us to go to. When I started at Garfield, we would start the year with about 450 kids, and we'd end with about 530 kids. They're starting over 500 and ending with over 600 now. They've opened about 4 classrooms since I've left. So I think as people are starting to realize that that's an option for their families and for their kiddos, you're seeing more kiddos enroll.
On the topic of George Matthews, one of the other things that we spent time talking about is, you know, as we make this major milestone decision, administration has other decisions to make. One being, you know, George Matthews currently houses our behavior program. And we've talked about the importance of that program and how we'd like to see that continue, possibly even expanded upon. And so we've just, you know, I think that's something we'd look to administration to where would that be best to be moved to? What other elementary school? And what are the opportunities? I mean, I've specifically asked Joshua how and what would it look like to grow that plan? We don't need to, like, you know, obviously we don't have that hammered out, but it's something like, it's top of mind. It's very much one of the things that becomes affected by this, but it's something we've been talking about and want to make sure we have a plan for and developed over these next several months.
What is the reason for not planning another secondary, that early child in there? Because I know the last year we've heard that that's what we needed, so what's the reason for not?
I didn't follow your question.
Early childhood.
What is the reason for not? Andy, I'm gonna let you answer that. That was.
Well, I mean, as we've talked about this, you know, one of those models was to do that at BO. We did talk at at least one meeting about what all's involved in that. Obviously, there's staffing that has to go into that. Josh, you talked about the financing piece, how we're currently getting funded and the ability to just grow that. I mean, we've got, and I guess where I feel like we kind of settled on is there's a lot of other elements that have to be put in place to make this happen. It would probably be in our best interest to retain Georgia Matthews as a building for a year or two. Let's get all the other things in place and then really take a harder look at that and make that assessment a little bit farther down the road, but not try to put that in and get that as part of what's critical to be decided upon here over these next 8 months.
And I think we were all trying to be very aware, whatever we did, we don't want to end up that something does happen, you know, some new plant moves to town and all of a sudden we have 800 new students and we have nowhere to put them. So holding on to the two town schools for a little bit and just kind of taking a few deep breaths and seeing what happens. Temporarily, maybe putting some different programming in the Gertrude Walker that right now might not have a great permanent home, see how that works. And then if it looks like the student population is staying stable, or, we're not seeing those big increases, then you can feel more comfortable getting rid of buildings, because we don't want to get rid of buildings and then all of a sudden have the opposite problem.
Can you guys talk a little bit about what you think you would do with Georgia or Gertrude Walker? We talked about using that for other district uses.
Well, I mean, go ahead, Justin. I know we talked about 100 different things.
We've talked about a lot of things. One of the things that you could do is sell this building and make Gertrude Walker the new ENC.
And if not, just tech.
Yeah, and if not, that would,
Nutrition and.
moving
go
like
there.
tech and nutrition over there. Our warehouse that we have back here is pretty tiny, and when Tracy gets all of her shipments for the nutrition, it gets pretty tight getting things in there, and having extra space for them to use that for facilities like that would be an option.
And then they have that big field next to it too, that
Yeah.
you could expand.
Yeah.
There's a lot of area there, so Gertrude Walker could become the new ESC if we wanted, if that board wanted that to be an option as far as maybe seeing what you could leverage this as far as financially. This might be the most prime property in all the district as far as USD 457.
Yeah, and we talked about that, and that shift is part of, at one point, should we do that now? But it kind of fell into that same category as to, do we, the go, no go on the early education at Georgia Matthews? Yes, VSC could move over there. That's really not critical to the implementing grade reconfiguration. So the thought is, let's stay focused on getting that done well. These other things are real possibilities that could come up and come into the discussion in the next year or two. But let's focus year one on implementing this. And then those other things, vet them in when the time is right and all the other important decisions have been made. Then we could turn our attention to things like that, like the ESC and potentially going to Gertrude Walker. Just prioritization of time and resources to make sure that the grade configuration goes off smoothly.
Both farm schools are one-track schools, right?
Yes, sir.
And I know Jenny Barker's over capacity. Pine Mill, they were pretty close too, right? Or
Depends on the grade level. We've got, was it 2 or 3 grades that were,
Two that are pretty full.
yeah, and then a couple that are pretty low, yeah.
I was just rolling through my head, if we just bring Jenny Barker down to capacity, you know what I mean, to what our 75%, what does that look like as far as number of heads, number of students that would move out from there?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about, so Bernie and Sis and Charles Stones are, aside from the high school, are the two newest buildings in the district. And they're also, aside from that, in the middle schools, they're some of our biggest buildings in the district. Jenny Barker and Pine Mill are, I believe they are our 2 oldest buildings in the district, is that correct?
Right, they're still open, yeah.
Yeah, they're still open, so, there's a lot of reasons why those 4 schools were chosen. That's just one of the reasons why those 2 were discussed is, I believe, Robin, you mentioned safety and security, just response time to those buildings.
Well, and we've not ever really talked about it very much in any of the meetings, but I know there's some water concerns at both of those buildings as well. Which, is kind of an important thing as well.
Groundwater. I think specifically Jenny Barker, right? Is that the one that has the groundwater? Not necessarily.
Right, there's debate on that, but yes,
Okay.
Mark definitely thought there was some issues with water, but other people say maybe that not so much, so.
Okay.
Looking at Georgia Matthews and Gertrude Walker, when we look at the facilities, as far as maintenance, what are we looking at you may not have that right now, Jessica, but for the next couple of years, we're looking at any significant things or,
For Georgia Matthews, the next 2 years, nothing.
okay.
Gertrude Walker, if you didn't do the roof, about 140,000.
Let's schedule that, Plymell and Jenny.
Plymell is 1.234, about $1.5 million in the next 2 years, and Jenny Barker about 920,000.
Okay, you guys are good. Any questions? You wanna go on our tour of the buildings?
Yeah.
If there was a time when there might be some water coming through the roof, the night would.
Oh, yeah, be the time.
I was actually thinking the same thing.
Well, you know what? So we'll spread out. I mean, it's a big bus and it's probably out here or out front. Is that right?
It's actually over across the street because the little bus had an issue, so they have the big bus and they couldn't get it in, so it's over there.
Let's do 5 minutes and
Community members are more than welcome to ride the bus.
then there's some water over there that's right there. One grab here. Yeah, we're at 25.
They're going to, can we just for everybody watching online, we're gonna go to Plymell, and then Jenny Barker, then Georgia Matthews, and lastly, Gertrude Walker. Gertrude Walker.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.